and to have facilitated travel for Hezbollah members, and to send money raised in Venezuela to Hezbollah officials in Lebanon. He is also said to have met with senior Hezbollah officials in Lebanon to discuss operational issues, including possible kidnappings and terrorist attacks. So this gives you an idea of the interconnectivity between individuals very high in the Venezuelan government. We're talking about a minister, and groups with very deep links, individuals with very deep links to Hezbollah in Lebanon. I would mention here that although the relationship between Chavez and states like Iran are basically based on having common enemies, the United States, the affinity of Chavez and his inner circle for Islamist extremists does have an ideological component. It's not entirely, in my view, a matter of realpolitik. And for instance, one of Chavez's latest guru, it's a Spanish sociologist by the name of Jorge Verstringe, who's the author of a book called La Guerra Periférica y el Islam Revolucionario, Orígenes, Reglas y Ética de la Guerra Asimétrica. And it's Peripheral War and Revolutionary Islam, the Origins, Rules, and Ethics of Asymmetrical Warfare. This Verstringe began as a Francoist, a right-winger. Then he became a socialist, and eventually he discovered in revolutionary Islam the transformational ideology of the 21st century. And in 2004, he was invited to speak at a forum in the Venezuelan Military Academy about the possibility of an asymmetrical conflict between the United States and Venezuela. And Chavez participated in this event, and the Venezuelan army also bought 30,000 copies of this book and distributed it to all generals, officers, and ranks in the military establishment. So obviously, it's a desire to promote this theory of the revolutionary Islam as the new anti-imperialist ideology. And it's very interesting that this thinking is consistent with the intellectual evolution of Ilich Ramirez Sanchez, who's a Venezuelan, better known as Carlos the Jackal, who's in prison in France for killing two police officers and their informant. And from a Marxist revolutionary that he was while a terrorist, Carlos has converted to Islam and has written a book that presents Islam, again, revolutionary Islam, as a 21st century answer to American imperialism. And what's even more interesting is that Chavez has maintained a correspondence with Carlos since 1999, when in response to a letter from Carlos, Chavez calls him a distinguished compatriot. And at a meeting of OPEC in Caracas in 2006, Chavez brought up the case of Carlos and referred to him as a good friend. And I mention this because what we're seeing here is the convergence of these neo-populist, neo-Peronist, quasi-Marxist revolutionary ideologies that Chavez is pushing, with ideologies of the left and with radical Islamist ideologies. And so this is, I think, a phenomenon that's to be taken very seriously, and that it does have a whole sway in the thinking of leading Venezuelan ideology. So I'll stop at this point. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I thought it was going to go longer, so go ahead.
Okay. We will take questions from the audience for Angel. If anyone has any questions? Yes.
What's the name again? The name of the gentleman who wrote the
Oh yeah, I'll spell it to you. It's V like Victor, ERS T like Thomas, R-I-N-G-E. Verstringe. That's Jorge's first name.
What's the name of the brilliant opus that Carlos just published?
I think it's called Revolutionary Islam. And by the way, we have seen, this is a bit outside of the Venezuela orbit, but if you look at developments in Europe, what's going on in Europe, you see this convergence between the extreme left and radical Islamism. And the common factor, what's binding these, what you would think are, absolutely, polar opposites together is anti-Semitism.
Luis?
Adding a comment.
This is a very good question, and I'm glad you brought up the issue of the grassroots, because we haven't really discussed it, and maybe Norman might later. But it's the challenge that Chavez is posing is not only at the level of state and movements, but also at the grassroots levels. And of course, in Venezuela, as you know, he has been trying to replicate the Committees for the Defense of the Revolution with the Círculos Bolivarianos. And basically what this means is, organizing in the people at the level of the bloc, so that they would, so-called defend the so-called revolution, spy on the neighbors. This has been a very effective technique of social control in Cuba. Because in Cuba, nothing can happen without the committees, knowing what's going on. Now, the problem for the Castros, and this is another matter altogether, is that now this, because of the level of deprivation, the people in these committees are losing faith in the system. But it's a very effective way of controlling at the grassroots levels, intimidating people who could be opponents of the government. And this is being done not only in Venezuela, but throughout the region. And I spoke earlier, mentioned the Casas del Alba. These are 200 of those in Peru. This is the same concept, that you get, small circles of people, you organize them, you use them to, support your candidates, to intimidate the opposition, and then to consolidate the revolution once it occurs. So there is a very strong effort, which Chavez has been pursuing, using, this is his oil weapon again, throughout the Andean region in particular, and in Central America. And it's true that a lot of groups who were previously not mobilized have become politicized, a number of Indian groups throughout the region. There are some, what I think are very bizarre cases. It's a case in Venezuela in which one indigenous group that had no previous relation to Islam declared itself Islamic. I mean, these people... Huh?
The Wayu.
Yeah, the Wayu. Now, they probably don't know anything about Islam, but they say, well, we are Islamic. So this is happening. Hezbollah is, there are Hezbollah groups in Venezuela. There is Venezuelan Hezbollah. There is Argentinian Hezbollah, which may or may not have a relationship with the original group in Lebanon. But we see this mobilization at the grassroots levels that, I agree with you, it's a very dangerous phenomenon. And it needs to be combated also with grassroots activities.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have just a comment about what you, Angel was mentioning, and just to give you more information about a very important person. His name is the Minister of Interior. The name is Tarek El Alsami. Tarek El Alsami is...
mention him.
No, but I'm going to describe a little bit more about him. Is basically a descendant of father from Syria, mother from Lebanon. And he's a very young person, 32 years old. He's a minister. And as Angel mentioned, he has been the most active person for Hezbollah in the country. Actually, he is the one who has control of all the security apparatus or system in the country. But more than that, the previous position he held was the National Identification Office, who provide IDs and passport, where most of all the Hezbollah and Hamas has been providing with Venezuelan documentation as a Venezuelan, which they are not, but be able to mobilize through the region.